Um, my topic today starts from a reflection about blackouts. So, blackouts are heavily connected to the theme of system security. When we talk about system security, we're not simply looking back at past blackouts as historical curiosities, but we are reflecting on how the concept of security itself has evolved over the last 20 years or so, in its nature, in its scope, and its relationship with decarbonization and market design. The recent Spanish blackout in 2025 has shown how fragile our energy systems are when climate, infrastructure, and market dynamics interact in unpredictable ways. For several hours, the entire Iberian Peninsula lost power. Technically, the system faced repeated overvoltage episodes that triggered a cascade of failures in the grid, but the causes behind that were multiple and likely structural of the Spanish system. First among them, the rapid growth of distributed self-consumption renewables. Spain now has about 8 gigawatts of distributed small-scale solar plants under 1 megawatt, with little to no visibility to the grid operator. So when weather conditions change abruptly, these units can suddenly enter or exit the system, creating big swings in generation. Second, a shortage of balancing and fast response system. Spain still has a very limited balancing capacity with few batteries, few capacitors that could help stabilize the frequency or voltage very quickly. So these are just a couple of the root causes behind the disruptive event that took place last April 28, but they make clear that it wasn't a failure of a single plant, but the failure of coordination within a complex and highly electrified ecosystem. If we look back more than 20 years, the Italian 2003 nationwide blackout represented one of the most emblematic examples of systemic vulnerability in a pre-decarbonization era. The triggering event at that time was a line trip in Switzerland, which propagated across a tightly coupled European grid. But the conditions on which it insisted, this blackout, were inherently different from the ones of the 2025 Spanish blackout, because it emerged in a world dominated by fossil-based generation and abundant synchronous plants. The Spanish one instead emerged in a world dominated by variable renewables and decentralized resources. So we're talking about two very different systems with two different fragilities, but the same lesson, the one you can find at the bottom of the slide, that security of supply cannot be taken for granted. Today's energy systems are infinitely more complex both in an endogenous and exogenous way. Over the last 2 decades, the energy system has increased the number and importance of interconnectors between sectors, actors, and technologies at a rate far faster than the one that happened in the 50 years before, probably. Today, energy security cannot also be separated from the goal of climate sustainability. Unlike in 2003, we now pursue decarbonization as a core objective of energy policy, while operating under growing climate-related stress. So security is not only about mitigation of this new condition, but also about adaptation, ensuring that infrastructure and market design remain resilient under these new, extreme, and rapidly changing operating conditions. This brings me to the wider topic of the energy trilemma, as defined by the World Energy Council. Sorry. The three vertices of this triangle are the following. We have decarbonization, or environmental sustainability, affordability, or energy equity, and energy security, or reliability of supply. Globally, but also Europe-wise, energy security remains the weakest leg of this triangle, scoring in Europe 63 out of 100, compared to around 74 for sustainability and 87, as you can see there, for affordability. That's 2024 index. But averages, as you know, can be misleading. In Europe, some energy systems perform significantly better. Italy, for instance, ranks among the top performing countries, scoring high in both sustainability and security, but it's still penalized by energy prices, though on the affordability side. But we also believe that security is not just a pillar among three. It's probably the enabler of the other two. Only when security is ensured, markets can function properly and deliver affordable prices. Only when the system is secure, we can pursue ambitious and effective decarbonization policies. The opposite is not true. Sustainability and affordability cannot exist when the system is not secure. that we've seen something like that during the emergency of price crisis of 2021 and 2022. A crisis of supply security at that time, driven by post-COVID demand recovery, the aggression of Ukraine, and the European gas crunch, which quickly turned into an economic and social emergency. Prices skyrocketed, inflation spread, and governments had to take action with emergency caps, windfall taxes, temporary suspensions, basically, of normal market operations. All of these ultimately slowed down decarbonization efforts. In other words, every time security falters, we are forced to sacrifice market functioning and climate ambition to restore stability. This experience, the one of 2021 and 2022, has taught us a simple but fundamental lesson. Strengthening security through diversification, flexibility, and resilience is what enables markets and investors to trust the transition. If energy security is the enabling condition for both sustainability and affordability, then the way our markets are structured is central to achieve all the three dimensions of the trilemma. The electricity market was originally designed with a different purpose in mind: efficiency over the short and long term through the promotion of competition. Over time, however, this traditional goal has been joined by a new and increasingly dominant priority: decarbonization indeed. This shift has profound implications for market design, as the growing share of renewable energy sources significantly affects the ability of wholesale spot markets to provide accurate signals for immediate and long-term needs. Renewables, which are often non-dispatchable and widely distributed, present new challenges that require a reconsideration of wholesale market design. For a market design that successfully supports efficiency and competition while pursuing decarbonization, new issues of system adequacy and security must now be addressed, because they were largely guaranteed for free when the original wholesale power market was first designed. The traditional market design indeed focuses almost entirely on spot markets, assuming that price signals alone can ensure real-time availability of a balanced resource mix. This assumption was valid during the early days of the European electricity market design. At that time, conventional generators entered the market, benefiting from inherited, well-planned systems where older plants could provide all the necessary ancillary services: inertia, frequency control, voltage stability, almost as a free byproduct of their operation. But today the situation is different. As renewable energy develops, these attributes are no longer free, and the traditional market design is starting to show its limits. For instance, the market struggles to provide adequate incentives solely through spot prices to attract investments in the right technologies at the right time and in the right places. This issue is increasingly critical, given the cost structure of renewables, which features high fixed cost and unpredictable returns, and compounded by the necessity of integrating additional resources to maintain a secure and resilient energy system. So we had to recognize that under the traditional market design, these challenges make it difficult to attract significant investment in renewable and other essential resources, such as storage, on a purely merchant basis. To address these limitations and challenges, in Italy, one of the most advanced responses emerged a few years ago: a new approach through a three-market forward model that integrates innovative forward contracting mechanisms with existing tools. Rather than abandoning market mechanisms, it builds on them an efficient system that integrates the current tools of competition in the market with appropriate forward market mechanisms. Across Europe, forward contracting mechanisms are not new. We've been seeing for years mechanisms in which counterparties are selected on the basis of competitive auctions. They exist to promote the construction of renewable capacity, and we also have capacity markets to ensure adequacy. But the increasing need for additional resources like storage calls for new and improved mechanisms. The proposed model that you can see here interconnects three forward markets to procure the resources essential for system security. In fact, the value of this proposal lies not only in the design of each individual mechanism, of each individual market, but also in how they're linked, creating a cohesive framework for coordinated investment and system-wide planning. Let me briefly outline these markets. The first one you can see is the pro-decarbonization forward market. This is a market that replaces and integrates the existing renewable support mechanisms by shifting from plant-specific contracts to multi-year market-based products. This is meant to go past the approach of the traditional long-term support mechanism, like the throughways contract for difference, which ultimately provide for the payment of the auction, to the winner of the auction, a fixed fee, independent of the market price, for the energy that has been produced and fed into the network. But they don't provide a correct signal to investment in terms of type and location, nor inducing the owner to maximize the value of production, because production decisions are taken independently of the energy market price. Unlike conventional CFD, this market has been proposed, aims to align investment incentives with system needs. So encouraging technology and location choices while promoting efficiency. The second market is the pro-adequacy market. I won't dive more in deep into this market. It's very well known. It's the capacity market. It's aimed at ensuring resource adequacy, which means having enough resources available to meet demand when the system is expected to be most tight. The third one, which is the one I want to focus today, is the pro-security forward market. Let me spend a few words on why this market is needed. To accommodate these renewable penetration levels consistent with the decarbonization objectives, electrical systems require a significant expansion of storage in the coming years. As we've seen, high levels of renewable penetration are achievable and sustainable if adequate storage systems are in place, both from an economic, but most of all, system security point of view. Storage capacity serves two primary purposes. You can see them on the top. Absorbing renewable overgeneration by storing excess production from renewables, enhancing system security by providing ancillary services such as voltage and frequency regulation with low or zero technical minimums, fast activation, a quick response time when the load varies. However, despite its importance, merchant investment in storage faces substantial risks. Storage systems are characterized by high fixed costs and rely on external factors like the development of renewables and network infrastructure, which are mostly unpredictable for investors. Moreover, they are also dependent on margins from dispatching services, which are volatile and cannot be reliably hedged unless the system operator provides guarantees through forward contracts. So all of this creates a risk of underinvestment, potentially leaving the system without sufficient storage capacity to meet and to match the ambitious renewable energy targets. That's basically kind of what happened in Spain. It's a real market failure. So to overcome this, we think that regulation should intervene to address two objectives at least. First, introduce forward contracting mechanisms to ensure the availability of storage resources. And second, establish strong coordination between the development of renewables, storage solutions, and network infrastructures. Italy, as often happened in energy regulation, has taken a proactive approach by implementing mechanisms very much aligned with this vision that I just represented. We have the brand new FERX mechanism that supports renewable energy development. It's the pro-decarbonization market. We have adjustment to the capacity mechanisms that focus on system adequacy. And concerning system security, the country opted for the development of a centralized contracting solution in which the system covers the entire cost and takes on the market risk coming from the energy markets. I'm talking in particular about a mechanism called MAXE that organizes competitive auction to allocate multi-year forward contracts between the system operator and the storage operator tailored to each reference technology. The reference technologies aimed are lithium-ion batteries and pumped hydro for the time being. In other terms, successful bidders in this mechanism commit to developing and making the storage capacity available for dispatching purposes in exchange for a fixed annual premium. But that's not all, because the scope of MAXE goes beyond system security. A storage system contracted by the storage operator also play a crucial role in managing market price volatility, which is another issue of these times. This happens through the so-called intertemporal swap contracts. The name is pretty evocates like something very original, but they're hedging instruments basically that will allow market operators to manage the unpredictability of renewable generation And this is the real link between this market in relation to the first one, the pro-decarbonization one, because these time-shifting contracts, these intertemporal swap contracts, can be purchased at auction by market operators through a centralized platform or also a secondary market that is managed and regulated by the GME, which is the Italian NEMO. So it's the GME that will make the storage capacity procured by Terna, the system operator, available to market operators through the procedures established by the MACSE. A few final remarks. The MACSE represents a complex and challenging tool, but also a very promising one for a few reasons. First, competitive procedures are used to select storage where and when they're needed, in coordination with non-dispatchable renewable sources. Second, through the GME's time-shifting products, storage will be made available not just to developers, but for all market operators who will use it based on price signals, maximizing the benefit for the entire system. So on one hand, this approach facilitates investment in storage because it reduces the risk for investors and also directs storage resources where they're most needed. On the other hand, the usage of these storage resources is designed to benefit the entire system rather than just individual operators. So where are we now? The first MACSE auction just took place end of September, and results have exceeded all expectations. The awarded price settled at around 13,000 euros per megawatt hour per year, which marked a 65% decrease from the reference value, which was around 37K. And this sent a clear message, a clear market signal, as the auction outcome anticipated even the most optimistic cost projections by several years. With this result, Italy became the first major European country to prove that electrochemical storage can already compete on market terms. Even more remarkably, the MACSE could end up costing zero to consumers, since the revenues generated to the GME's time-shifting products may fully offset the mechanism's cost. Looking ahead, Terna plans, the system operator, plans 2 additional MACSE auctions in 2026, one for lithium-ion batteries and another one for pumped hydro plants. Thank you.